Hey there, Juan Morales here, and in today's episode we're going to cover a powerful concept that can really help you understand why so many tasks are very, very hard for you to execute while they seem to be very easy for other people to execute. And this isn't about talent, this is really about fear and the things that we attach to whatever it is the activity that we have to do. So, to get into this, let me illustrate this with a story first. You ever see the movie Jurassic Park, the original one from 1993? In that movie, they explain how they did the whole thing with the dinosaurs, and they outline the fact that just like today, there's mosquitoes. In the times of the dinosaurs, they also had mosquitoes, and some of those mosquitoes got caught in the amber, and then they were fossilized. And that now with technology, they were able to extract the DNA from the mosquitoes themselves. But one of the concepts that happened, even as they're showing the scene, is this idea of like nobody has ever been able to get the whole strand. So what they did is they grabbed DNA from frogs and they filled in the gaps so that the dinosaurs could exist. Now, the reason I bring this up is because in our own lives and in our own experience, this is what we do all of the time. We don't have a fully accurate assessment of what's happening on the other end because we don't know what the other person may be thinking. So what we tend to do is we tend to fill the gaps in our own thinking with our own thinking, which of course and inevitably leads to an echo chamber of us seeing the same beliefs that we have repeat and repeat and repeat because we don't know. So let's say, for example, that you tend to think or you tend to criticize a lot what other people do. When they mess up, you tend to be very harsh with them. You tend to criticize a lot. Everything has a wrong to it. Even masterpieces, you find flaws in it. So you're basically used to consistently looking at the negative. So what do you think happens when you're faced with a situation where you have to put some content out there or produce something to put out to the market? And again, the market is the market. It's the people that are going to consume whatever you're putting out. So if we look at it from the assessment of, okay, I know certain things about the market. I know they all have this same problem. I know they all have the same predisposition to believe this and this and this. I know certain things about them, but I don't know all of them. And what we do is that we fill in the market's thinking with our own thinking. And this is where the problem comes in. Why does the problem come in? Let's say you have that trait of being critical. Don't you think you're going to think the market is overly critical of you? Absolutely. And why wouldn't you? Because from that perspective and from the part of the thinking process where we're adding ourselves into that, right? Filling the gaps, like the frogs in Jurassic Park. We are filling those gaps in the thinking that a marketplace has, in a thinking that, let's say, our spouse may have, a friend may have. We fill it with our own thinking. And if our own thinking is flawed by itself, then we've just compounded the damage that that flaw can do. Because if we go back to thinking, let's say, the criticism, I can see where criticism is useful if it's done the right way and it's done for the right reason in terms of really getting feedback or giving feedback on something that happens. But being someone who criticizes everything and who does so even when nobody has asked you to do it is more of a sign of feeling threatened, wanting to feel self-righteous, wanting to call attention to yourself, wanting to make yourself important. There's all kinds of things that you can attribute to doing that. That, of course, if they are a part of who we are and how we operate all the time, we're going to start filling in the gaps where we don't know what they're thinking with ourselves. This is very important, and I can't stress it enough because if you look at your life, this may be, if not the number one source of issues that you have, it's very close to the top. Because that's what leads to your suspicions, that's what leads to your fears, that's what leads to all of that. And it's usually guided by those fears and usually guided by those suspicions because, again, you're installing your own flawed thinking into the thinking that you think that other people have. And that becomes an issue. So next time that you're considering these things and you feel that someone else is about to X or they're going to react in a certain way, I want you to stop for a minute and think of how that reaction would be different if you thought differently. Because it's one thing to say, oh, they're all going to criticize me, right? And in a way, that's because I criticize everybody. But if I come at it from the perspective of, I appreciate everybody, then would that even change how the market or whoever is supposed to be the intended recipient reacts to my message? If it does change it, then it's my own thinking that's flawed, that's inside of the idea of the market thinking a certain way. But if it doesn't change it, then it's based on fact. No matter who you are, that's going to be different. Now what you're going to realize is that by just running this small test on yourself a couple of times, you're going to realize that 90% of the time, it's our own thoughts that we're installing. It's our own unchecked assumptions that are there. And we believe, oh, this client's never going to want to pay me X. That's a classic one. Nobody's going to want to pay X. But when you say that, you're not really talking about that nobody out there in the marketplace is spending this money. What you're really saying is, I wouldn't pay for this. I don't have the money to pay for this. Why would someone else buy this? So that's really what you're saying. And it's critical to understand that distinction between the two. Again, if you install your own flawed thinking into your thinking when you're talking to your market or someone who's an intended recipient that you want to persuade somehow, you are adding your own flaw into that, which is why you keep seeing that same thing happening. That's why you still believe that you're going to get criticized. That's why you still believe that nobody's going to buy your stuff at that price point, because you wouldn't do it in the first place. If you really separate that from your experience, what you're going to realize is that it is because of these beliefs that are inside of you that you're projecting onto someone else, that you see them over there, but they're not real. And I'm sure you've had the experience of being in a conversation with someone and expecting them to react a certain way and them surprising you by not reacting like that and taking it in a completely different direction. Sometimes you thought that a deal was going to be very hard to pull off, and then that deal became super easy to do. And it's all because we are filling up that thinking with our own flawed thinking. That's it for me today. This is Juan Morales signing out. I'll see you on the next one.